Hello, welcome to Trish's Cards and Crafts, and this is another one in my series of simple to stepped up stamping on Sundays. And these are the cards that I've made today, and this is the one that I'm going to show you how I made, the simple card. I saw something similar on Pinterest and I thought it would be nice to try and see if I could make it simple so that it would actually stand out, but also nice and simple as well to be able to reproduce at home. What I did with this one, because the one that I saw on Pinterest had layers, so it had a bit more like this, but not quite the same either. The actual layer was that size, and then it had a mat behind it to make it stand out. I thought, well, we'd try and make it so that it would stand out by putting some shading around the edge. I'll explain a bit later how I did this one. I've also stamped on the envelope on the front and the back, and I've done a little bit of stamping on the inside. I haven't put any sentiment on the inside of this card, but because I like to try and do those later when I'm ready to send them off, but I have put one in on the inside of this one, which came with the set that I'm going to use today. So I'll just show you this set. It's called Peaceful Boughs. That's the sentiment I used. I've used this image, and I used the small cone, and I've used the Season's Greetings. Okay, so well, let's get with it. So to start off, I used a piece of post-it note, and I'm afraid I ruined I made a bit of a mistake when I did this earlier on, so I'm going to try not to make the same mistake again. So what I've done, put my post-it note down, and then I'm going to fold it in half. It's easier if I fold it in half, because then I know I get everything right then. So we need it to be, the post-it note's 5 inches long, so I put it on the 8, I don't know, you can't see this very well, just move that slightly, there we go. I put this on the I want it to be in the middle, so I've put it on the 8-inch line there, and then I've put 2.5 inches either side, so it starts at 10.5 and finishes at 5.5. Okay, and then I just marked with my pencil at 1.5, at 3/4 of an inch either side. That's it. And so that I've got it the same at the top and the bottom, I also came down about 1/2 inch there, draw a line across again so that I know it's straight, and then I'm going up from that mark, whoops, and that mark. Just need to make that better. Just check, make sure I got that one right. I think my chair's going to move in a minute. There we go. So then we just need to cut around the lines. There we go. And there we have our mask. once I've undone it again. Now, I did have a few problems because it's sticky, and because I've bent it now, I'm going to use some, I've got some repositionable a tape pen. I'm just going to put a little bit of that on. That'll do. Doesn't need a lot. Because then I'm going to centre this on my card, leaving a little bit at the top and bottom. Just make sure that's straight. There we go. And get that as straight as I can. There we go. And then I just used another 2 pieces of post-it note at the bottom, or actually at the top, just to make sure it was covered in case I stamp off, and at the bottom. I just had a slight problem because I left the post-it note on for the more stepped up version. I left the post-it note on while I put it through my embossing machine. This one here, I put it through with I used the winter snow embossing folder because I thought it would look nice. But I didn't think, I did the masking off and I coloured the background and then I put it through, which was a mistake because I should have done the stamping first, because I had to then go over it all because the image didn't come out properly. So if you are going to emboss, make sure you do your stamping before you emboss, otherwise you'll have a problem when you try and stamp because the image won't be able to go right down into the card properly. So that's why I coloured them in a little bit more strongly than I did on the first one I did. Okay, that's why the colouring in is slightly different because the image was right. So let's get some. First of all, I'm using a brush, but you can use a finger dauber. I just didn't have one in the right colour that I wanted for today. But you can use a finger dauber, you could use a piece of cotton wool, you can use, you know, whatever you've got to hand. So, just going to go around the outside. That's something else I haven't done now. I'll just do it lightly now. I'm going to do it the opposite way around to the way I did it last time. So, what I haven't done, which is what I did before, I used a piece of paper that I'd ripped and so I've got a very faint one there and then another layer here and this one I want to be a little bit darker. Without it being too dark. Just to give the impression of a, there we go. So I might need to do this one a bit more. So you've got layers of snow maybe in the background. Okay, so that's all I need the brush for. And I don't need that for now. The next thing is to stamp the cone, and I use the early espresso to stamp the cone. Here we go. And I want him positioned about here. And what I did, I stamped it again and I cut it around the outside so that I could mask it off, because I want it to appear as if it's actually on one of the branches. Just make sure I've got no ink on my fingers. Shaded spruce I'm using now for the bough, or for the branch. And I'm going to position that so that it looks as though the pine cone is on the branch. I'm really pressing down where the pine cone is, because it will leave a ridge otherwise around. There we go. It hasn't left so much of an edge around there. Okay, because when I did it the first time on this one, it did leave quite a lot, so I ended up colouring, trying to use the inks to make it look as though it was closer to it than it actually was. Okay, I can take that off again. Whoop. There we go. And I just used some of the crumb cake marker to do the fir cone and the pine cone, or whatever, and the branch itself. You don't have to be too precious about the colouring, but because you want it to look quite solid, and it wouldn't matter too much if there was, there we go, a little bit outside of it, because it just looks as though it's the shadows perhaps. There we go. And the branch, I am using the thicker end, but you could use the thinner end for this. Just for the speed, I'm going to use the thicker end, and there is a nice little point to it, so it's not too bad. There we go. And then I'm using shaded spruce marker as well to do the leaves. Again, when I did the other one, I used the fine end, but for speed, because I'm filming this, I will use the brush end. Just means I can cover the area quicker. Okay. Obviously, you can take your time to do this, but as I'm filming, I don't want to take too long, just in case I have problems with my camera. Don't want to run out of space. My memory, my camera. Right. done it. There we go. So that's all filled in. There was another stamp that is in the set. Looks a little bit like snow, and as white isn't going to come out very well, I'm using my balmy blue again to just be my snow. Now, because I don't necessarily want it to look, I want it to look as if it's behind the branches as well. I'm just going to stamp off once, just to make it a little bit more faded, and go behind, and that way it'll look as if it's further away. So just one more maybe. Maybe. Ah. There we go. Right, so that's my stamping inside the frame done. And now I'll take the frame off. Here we go. It gives a nice neat edge around the outside. There is a little bit of the repositionable tape pen on there, but not a lot. There we go. So just to make it look more as if it's a frame. Now because I could use a ruler and go around the outside, but I think it looks quite effective. If you use a wobbly line, then it looks as if it's got a bit of a deckled edge, but also it doesn't matter then if you do wobble your line a little bit. So starting, so you don't want to necessarily do it all. You can have a bit straight and then another wobble. I just think it just gives it a bit more interest as well. And you can do it reasonably quickly, but you can take your time. I do like to try and do it all in one stroke, not to join it if I can. So there we go. There's the line, and then what I did to make it stand out a little bit more, I used, well, on this one I used a piece of sponge that I had, but on this one I just used a cotton bud, and I think I'll try and do that one again, just to go around the outside. It just makes it a little bit more defined, I think, and it doesn't got a chance not to go too far over. Right, so now those out of the way a minute. I'm using the smoky slate and just slightly roll, and I don't want it to be very heavy. I just wanted to try and define it a little bit more than it is. You can use a brush, you can use finger dauber, but I think this just helps it to stand out a bit more. So we'll do the other end now. Just keep going round. There we go. And then it doesn't have to be very dark, just nice and light. It's fine. There we go. And the last one. So, and I think it does help to lift the image out again. So we've used the mask to do the inside, and then used another masking technique to do the outside as well. Okay, so that's all I need now is my greeting, my sentiment. So I've got my season's greetings, and again I'm using the shaded spruce. I could use the I could have used my early espresso, but I'm using my shaded spruce for this one. And I don't mind that it just goes over the card, the inside of the image. It helps to draw everything together. There we go. And then on the inside of the card I used the smaller sprig of pine and shaded spruce again. And I just want to use a piece of scrap underneath, because I'm probably going to go off a little bit. So a little bit there, and then I want my brown again, my early espresso for the pine cone in the bottom corner, just off there. So that's the inside of my card. And then for the envelope, as we decorate the envelopes as well, if I can find it. Oh, there we go. Just going to make sure it's the right way up. I didn't do that last time. Use the shaded spruce just at the top, coming in, and then on the back of my envelope as well. I use this one, but I'm not going to ink up the whole of the image because I don't need it all, because it's just going to be coming down on the top. There we go. And then I'll use this one as well, the smaller one again. Just there. There we are. So there's my card and envelope done. So just take that away. So there's the envelope, and that's not the card I've just done. Here's the card I've just done. There we go. So that was the first one I did. I think it looks a bit better with less around the outside than this one. I don't mind this one so much. There's a little bit of yellow on the sponge that I used for this one, but that's fine. And then for the stepped up version, I used a piece of craft card that I had, an A6 craft card, and I've used a piece of early espresso at the back to make them matte, and a piece of whisper white for my top layer. I did exactly the same thing with the masking on the front, and I then once I'd masked it off, I then did the shading inside the mask with my balmy blue, and then I put it through the embossing folder, which is why then when I tried to print it out it didn't come out so well, so I had to use my pen to go over the top of it a little bit more so that it actually showed up a bit. Then I put the embossing, I should have then put it through the embossing folder after I'd done all the shading and everything. But it's fine. I then went over it with some glue, and I used some glitter to go over the top just to help it to stand out a little bit. Okay, so, and I did an insert again with the cone and the little picture branch coming in, and the nice sentiment that it had in the stamp set. I also did the envelope with this one. I did use the mask, so I stamped it the first time, put the mask on, and then stamped over it to show that there was one behind. I didn't do the back of that envelope. Okay, so that's how I did this card. So there we go, we have our 3 cards. I don't know which you prefer. I think I like this one best. And then, so these are the things that I used. The Peaceful Boughs, this one was available last year. I bought this one last year, but it's still available this year. They brought it back. And then I've used the Winter Snow embossing folder. Okay, thanks for joining me today. It's been a bit longer today. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you'll give it a thumbs up if you did. If you want to see any more of the videos, please click on the subscribe button, and if you click on the little bell icon, you'll be notified when I post more videos. Okay, so again, thanks for joining me today. Hope you'll join me again soon. Bye.